we know it's the best seats in the house,
Yep.
but what prompted you to join us in the ring card job title? And also, what was the process of you becoming the first ever ring boy?
Yeah, well, originally it was an opportunity kind of step out of my boundary and kind of, challenge myself. And, I was originally doing it for a regional show called Montreal Fight League. And, I approached the promoter there and, I basically pitched it to him. And, he thought it'd be a good idea. It could be fun. And, it really went without a hitch and recorded the whole thing. And I thought also while I was at it, it'd be a great opportunity to reach out to Shannon, who is the head of Invicta, Shannon Knapp. And, I pitched it to her again and basically said, I'm not looking to distract or subtract from a great night of fights, just add. And that's kind of what the overall conversation that I really want to have. And the idea that in true pursuit of equality, the answer is more, not less.
Yeah, I love that. More, not less. I've heard you say that before on other podcasts regarding this situation, this ring boy situation. And I love the idea. I think it's rad. I think we should all the organizations should have ring boys. If we're going to go with females, we might as well go both ways, right? For you, what's your biggest takeaway? I know obviously you're a man of many other hats other than ring boying, but what is your biggest takeaway from being a ring boy? Just because I think people look at the job and have so many stereotypes around, just like in the modeling industry. Models have so many stereotypes, and this is an extension of that. So what's your biggest takeaway? Like, what is the benefits and maybe even pitfalls that come with the job thus far?
Well, I would say, again, the biggest obstacle at the beginning was kind of stepping out of my comfort zone. As crazy it might sound, I was more nervous for my first time at Invicta than I was my last fight. Just because, again, in many ways, I was more concerned about what other people think rather than in a fight, I'm just doing me, and, it kind of becomes natural. So obviously now, the opportunity to work side with someone like Jade and all the other, team at Invicta, it's been a great experience nonetheless. So it's really amazing to be a part of the Invicta family now, moving forward. But obviously, I'd say the biggest obstacle at the beginning was getting out of your skin and trying something new.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, go ahead, Jade.
I like too the thought of just gender equality, like how we're always like, women can do what men can do, just like that side of it.
I could do anything, you can do bleeding. That's the current one. I don't know what else to really ask you about ring boying, except that we have this stigma that I think you've talked about before too. I've heard you talk about before, where even in the UK, I think it's Formula One or something, is discontinued using girls and whatnot. What are your thoughts on just this general industry of like being there for visual purposes only, if that makes sense?
Yes, I understand what you're saying, and even darts as well. And there was a bigger outcry with the darts than Formula One. And again, I some of the conversations that have been kind of out there is, talking about essentially, ending the job altogether. And I think that is not the right approach at it, because it would be taking platforms away, like from individuals like yourself. And again, I think it's an opportunity to kind of flip itself on its head, and instead, like I said, if less is more, think how much more is. And it makes perfect sense, obviously, with Invicta being all female fights. And the purpose that I have for it is not to, like I mentioned already, subtract or detract, but rather add to a great night of fights. And also, like I've mentioned before, is I have the greatest seats in the house, and I'm a huge fan of mixed martial arts, obviously being a fighter myself. I'm in any way to be around it in a way that, puts me in those seats, the happiest person there.
Yeah, that's well said. This definitely has given us a platform that we couldn't have otherwise necessarily accessed. And I think you're having that same experience. You're getting a lot more attention being a ring boy than you would if you hadn't had that platform. Yep. I mean, you might have had it in other directions, but this is like some other little spin-off that's giving you probably a lot of female attention too, which I think is cool.
For sure. And what I actually plan, like going beyond it as well, is I actually own the trademark Ring Boy, and I'm going to be creating a calendar with it. So what's it called? Again, more in regards to the aspect of equality, I'm going to have, because obviously now that I've done this, a bunch of my UFC friends and even guys that I don't even know, like, I want to be a Ring Boy. So it's called an opportunity. They can all be in the Ring Boy calendar with me, and I'm going to have every single weight class, because big is beautiful in MMA.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about cannabis. You were recently on the cover of High Times. Tell us what's going on with that.
Well, just to correct you on that, it was actually High Canada. It's a
okay, sorry.
Canadian version of it. But I'm in the early talks, and we'll be on if all goes well. Fingers crossed. High Times as well too.
Okay.
But moreover, in that again, I'm fighting a different fight in the aspect of something beyond myself. As you mentioned, Canada, is at the forefront in regards to ending prohibition, and we did so October 17th of last year. And one of the things that I'm trying to bring to attention, not only to myself, that even though as Canada has, done this monumental thing of ending prohibition, there's still a wider variety of Canadians that aren't allowed access to cannabis, and athletes are among them. And, unfortunately, there's an outdated mindset in regards to where cannabis finds itself. It finds itself on what's called the prohibited list. So it means that it's basically looked at the same as a steroid or an HGH, which is mind-boggling. Again, if I was to medicate with cannabis a week before a fight, it will have no effect on me on game day. More so, other first-line medications that people are allowed to have don't have the same bias or the same negative look at it. For instance, my next opponent, whoever that may be, he can have Vicodin in his system, and there wouldn't be an issue. He can have anti-anxiety pills, and it wouldn't be an issue. But yet, if I have cannabinoids in my system, I can get 6 months to a year. And again, that's a persecution of my specific medicine. And
when it's a healthier way to treat those things. Yeah.
Yes, but unfortunately, the way it kind of works is right now, specifically in the United States, cannabis is labeled as a Schedule I drug, which means that it's looked at the same as heroin. And with that classification means that America and all the other medical components of it aren't looked at all. So they basically don't recognize it as medicine, where in Canada they do. So part of the steps that I've been doing in regards to a TUE, which is called the therapeutic use exemption, is basically, unfortunately, I have to take all of the first-line medications, SSRIs, antidepressants, opioids, and it's a backwards. In speaking with my doctor, he's called this a backwards approach to medicine. When a doctor and a patient talk to each other and they figure out what works best for their patient, they don't just say, and again, in this case for me, it's cannabis, then you don't go, okay, let's try everything under the sun just so we come back to make sure this one thing works, or let's exhaust all other options. But that's not how medicine works. So my doctor is kind of scratching his head because they want me to try opioids. They want me to try antidepressants. And a lot of the things that they kind of, in regards to the dosage, it's almost outdated. So my doctor has to literally look into a book to be like, oh, this SSRI that we don't really do anymore, what do we have to do? Oh, okay, this, and this. It's a real backwards approach, but unfortunately, that's a way how the United States anti-doping and also the Japanese representatives, they look at cannabis in the same way. And USADA is from a bigger company, which is called, or organization, which is called WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. And basically, they put all the protocols and they make all the rules for the Olympics and for, obviously the UFC and any other partners that they have. So the thing where it kind of lands right now is the reason I believe that they haven't said yes is because it's more political, because my case will actually set precedent not only for myself, but all other athletes, and it'll create an avenue. And just to kind of touch on one last thing, the Canadian version of USADA, which is called the CCES, the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sports, they lobbied to actually remove cannabis from the prohibited list. But Japan and the United States representatives, USADA, declined it. And because it's basically the Olympics and whatnot, that kind of system, everyone has to agree to it. So they basically voided the actual process. And one of the compromises that they did have was for CBDs, and they recently allowed CBDs. But the issue is, in regards to what I suffer from, bilateral neuropathic pain, CBD isn't necessarily the best option. It's actually the pain management and the actual components of THC that actually helps with someone like myself. And again, it's one of those things that, it's a hard process. I've been doing this for about 18 months, but anything worth doing usually takes a long time.
What is bilateral neuropathic pain? What does that do to you?
Yep, it's nerve damage. It's in my upper extremities. So it originated, I have arthritis in both my wrists. And when I was younger, in a past life, I used to jump off really high stairs with my skateboard before I realized I was terrified of heights. And then I broke my hand, 2 breaks, 4 fractures. So I had a bone graft. So they took bone out of my hip and made me a new wrist. And if you can see, there's a gnarly scar over there. But basically, the nerve pain came from there. And also on the other side, in regards to the arthritis, and it's carried up into my elbow. And it's even attached to my cervical spine in regards to, herniated discs and just, uncomfortable radiating heat and radiating pain. And again, nerve damage. I essentially get shocks every time I hit when I have flare-ups. And, as someone that makes a living punching and kicking, half that whole job requires punching. And if I'm not able to compete at my best because I'm at a competitive disadvantage, it's, an unfair place that I find myself. Because again, as mentioned, my next opponent can opt out for opioids, or he could opt out for Vicodin, and there wouldn't be an issue. But yet, because mine has a stigma along it, I can't medicate as prescribed by my doctor.
I wonder what like pharmaceuticals and CDC and, all that has to do with this, because there's so much money, involved in it. The pharmaceuticals is, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like, they don't want us using weed instead. They don't want us using CBD oil or anything natural instead. So
eyes on it.
True. Mm-hmm. And then you've seen that in the moves in both in Canada and parts of the places in the U.S. Hopefully, again, they leave wiggle room for, especially all the, the giants and the what's called the shoulders of the giants that, the people that have put together all of, the hard work to basically be the counterculture and making this headway in regards to cannabis. Because unfortunately, still in the U.S., but in Canada as well, we used to put people in jail for a plant just because, you can throw back in regards to the idea that people have been self-medicating and without being able to, with it all being in a black market and unable to, be in a doctor's hand. Again, that it's the detriment of the patient, who's in the individual who's not able to, get any dosing. And that's even one of the things that I'm kind of trying to promote in regards to, even though recreational cannabis is legal nationwide in Canada, I still suggest people to see their doctor, because the way I look at it, it's medication, right? It's my medication. And I think there's a whole swath of people that self-medicate, no matter what it is. We're bags of chemicals. And, whether it's a coffee or whether it's cannabis or whether it's, anything in between, moderation is key, and obviously doing it in direction of professionals. And again, I look personally at cannabis as a medicine, and I kind of suggest or, recommend everyone else to do so in some capacity.
I agree.
So how has this taken a stand in all this affected your career and life otherwise?
I think, at first there was a big, I was a little apprehensive to kind of do it because, I've been kind of doing it in the dark for the last 15, 16 months. And it wasn't until legalization happened in Canada that I felt almost obligated to no longer hide, the dark of prohibition as well. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is where a lot of the missed opportunity in regards to just understanding, whether it's CBD or, THC and the plant of cannabis itself, it's been in the dark. So, as everything starts moving forward in the light, I hope to, again, not only help myself, but other athletes who even have not ever thought about this, look at this as an alternative. And again, I'm not trying to tell everyone they should be medicating with cannabis, but I think it's what I would say is, if less is more, think how much more is. And that includes in regards to options for any type of patient.
So has there been much blowback, though, with any of the...
No, I've been, again, I think part of it is, the way I'm treating it, similar to in regards to Invicta and my ring boy duties. I'm not trying to, I'm doing it in a respectful way. And part of what I'm trying to do is share my story as a patient, rather than sharing my story as, someone that just smokes mad joints.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So did you have something?
I was just going to say that, I guess, how many, on average, like, is every fighter using CBD or some form of marijuana in some regard? Do you notice that that's, like, really rampant in the industry?
Yeah, I definitely say so. And that actually comes from the culture of, jiu-jitsu and California kind of colliding at the beginning in regards to mixed martial arts. I think it's very obviously, in many ways, as goes California, as goes California, as goes the country, you know what I mean? And that, reverberates in regards to North America as well. And, our example would be something like British Columbia, which has a very similar vibe to California in many ways. So the jiu-jitsu impact and influence in regards to mixed martial arts and, their cross-pollination, no pun intended, with cannabis is definitely prevalent. And again, I think no one has to take my word for it, but obviously the opioid crisis definitely, both in Canada and the US, is definitely showing the side effects in regards to, prescription drugs and what that detriment can do to, even sometimes invincible looking athletes who may, seem on the outside tougher than nails, but unfortunately, are broken on the inside because of dependency.
Yeah. I don't happen to use marijuana or CBD at this point, but, I'm not throwing shade on it in any regard. I know you and Jade are both users. And so maybe you guys can enlighten me with some of what amazingness that's brought into your life.
I'll let you go first, I guess.
Well, I think that for me, like I'm never using to get stoned. I'm never using to like I don't use it socially or anything like that. For me, I use it for anti-anxiety or for being able to sleep better. But because I struggle with getting deep sleep because my cortisol is so high. But I am right now. I've on week 7 or 8 of taking a break, and maybe whenever. Never mind. So I have noticed that, just like with anything, when you take out a medicine, whatever that was suppressing, starts to come up. So since I've cut it out, I've noticed that my anxiety is higher. It takes me a lot longer to fall asleep, like 2 or 3 times as long. So I do notice that I do have a bit of a dependence on it, but I'm not addicted. Like I said, I have 7 or 8 weeks. I gave it up no problem. But I do think that if you're going to use something like Ambien or alcohol or Klonopin, whatever, Zoloft, whatever pill or you're going to use as medicine, whatever you're going to use, I think that this is definitely the healthier option, in my opinion, if it affects you, in a healthy way. For me, it didn't make me less motivated. It didn't make me groggy. It didn't make me any less productive when I used it. But again, I wasn't using it throughout the day randomly or when I was out socially. It was right before bed every night. So to me, it's the healthier option, but I definitely wouldn't, if you don't need it, then great. But, for someone that struggles with anxiety or, has high cortisol, I think it's the healthier option.
So with me, again, going back to my bilateral neuropathic pain, it's multifaceted, right? So pain management originally is what it's for. And in that case, I'll use more indica, but again, hybrids are options as well. And part of that is, post-training in regards to the pain management, and also because of just in regards to my condition, I have flare-ups. So, for instance, my nerve damage will be hurting. I'll range of motion will be an issue, and in order to be better in tune with my body, I medicate to basically stretch and calm down any type of. It's not necessarily muscle spasms, but it's deeper in there, and I get spasms all the time. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my arms just basically spasming because that's a reaction of the nerve damage and the almost like. Think of my wires in some ways are a little crossed and a little worn out at the joints, and no pun intended. And going back to it again, kind of to talk about in regards to the medical side, we have what are called anti-inflammatory properties are very important because, and specifically with cannabis, because we have cannabinoid receptors. We have roughly about 50 cannabinoid receptors in our body, and that's at every single So every single area in regards to our our joints and whatnot. So what that is our spine is our highway in the capacity of how information travels to I send a thought in my head and my hand moves. I send a thought in my head, my knee moves. But think of that as the highway, your spine, right? In the nervous sense. And the exit are all the joints. And where anti-inflammatory processes happen is because that's the exit of that said highway, right? So think if there's a car pileup, the cannabis and the anti-inflammatory properties will clear up the accident. And that's what it kind of does for me. And moreover, whether it's sleeping, and again, my back is an issue because it's attached to my cervical spine where I do have a herniated disc, and I do have a pinched nerve, and that, that translates, and I constantly get spasms in my back that I medicate, and I'm able to calm down those specific areas. And, whether it's many of the other types of drugs that they've given me, it's not as direct. And moreover, I would even argue that the side effects are even worse. As someone who has to compete at the highest level, something like Lyrica, for instance, they put me on Lyrica, and I became bloated. I gained about 12 to 15 pounds in like 2 weeks. And, think about being constipated, bloated stomach, and getting punched in the stomach or on the ground, knee and belly. And, it really puts me at a competitive disadvantage because I'm not able to train like others in certain aspects, in certain times, because of the reaction to the flare-ups in regards to my condition that constantly happen. And again, it's almost random, but it's random and constant. So, it's multifaceted in the way it works with me. And, comparative to the other first-line medicines, it's a no-brainer. And that's what I've been able to, figure out with my doctor for the last 16, 18 months. But yet, unfortunately, USADA wants me to jump more hurdles. And, just to kind of clarify, I'm a huge believer in clean sport. I believe in everything that USADA stands for. And, I'm not looking at it necessarily as, a fight with them per se, but more a fight against an outdated mindset.
Right.
And, I think that, I do kind of feel obligated to fight, obviously, not just for myself, because there are many more Canadian athletes who are unable to medicate.
Yeah.
It's
Go, Jay.
You mentioned strands. I think that that's a big part of it too, because a lot of people they'll just smoke and they don't know it's a sativa, and then instead of getting calmed down, they're paranoid, and then they can't sleep. Like, I know for me, if I have a sativa, I am trying to solve the entire world's problems, and I'm like freaking out because I have more and more questions. But the indica is what relieves me of my anxiety. So it's so important to find the right strand. And then once you find, a strain as far as indica or sativa, but then once you even figure that out, then there's so many different types that benefit you in different ways. So I know that's really important. There's been times though that Mercedes probably knows most of these stories where the cookies weren't labeled, and I like cookies, so I would like go to town on them, and then it was like awful. So I think sometimes people have a bad experience like that, or get the wrong strand, and then it's like they turn it off for good, because they think that it affects them negatively when really they just needed, like you said, like a doctor's actual prescription. So I really hope that we can get there in our country too, because when we have someone prescribing it, the exact kind that you need, it can really
be a medicine.
It can really be a healthy medicine. But I was going to ask Elias, have you tried celery juice?
Say it again, sorry?
Have you tried like having celery juice on an empty stomach in the mornings? Because that's like one of the best things you can have as far as anti-inflammatory goes.
No, I have not. The celery juice?
Yeah.
Is it? Interesting. Yeah, I'll try it out. Actually, fun fact, I'm not allergic to anything, but the one thing I hate more than anything is celery.
Oh, wow.
I had a bad experience when I was a child. But I think grounded up, as long as it's either cooked, but I think also what's it called, blended, it might not be an issue. So I'll try it.
Google benefits of celery juice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, ginger. I definitely do ginger, and what's the word? It's almost like not a pepper. Turmeric?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, so I definitely do that as well. I put that
on everything.
Yeah.
So, I've had some very gnarly experiences with weed myself, but I think it's because I'm always smoking with the wrong people or way too much or whatever the case was, and that's what's kept me away from it for the most part. I'm like, look, I can't figure out my middle ground,
That's what helped
Goldilocks.
Me, figuring it out by myself at home.
Yeah.
And then I got it down.
So in any case, I feel I'm doing all right without it, but I wanted to play devil's advocate for a minute here and go back to what you were saying, Elias, regarding how you use weed as a medicine. And I hear everything you're saying, but something we talk about often on this show is seek the pain for positive gain, or basically go into the hard places and expose them so that you can work through them. And so the reason I say I'm going to play devil's advocate here is because I know that when it comes to, like, for instance, Jade using it for anxiety, or Elias, when you're using it to, help you get through a fight or get through the training for a fight or whatever it is, for your body's needs, is there any part of you that worries that that's any kind of, I guess I'm going to use the word escapism, or almost like a masking of what's going on that needs to be addressed in your body or in your mind, depending on if it's anxiety or actual physical pain?
Well, I would say no, because of the fact that other people are allowed to use other forms, right? Like, again, the only reason why mine necessarily has the, skepticism or, any type of pushback is because it's not necessarily accepted in the same way. And that's part of what I'm trying to fight the stigma that my medicine has that other people don't necessarily have to deal with. And, I'm a functioning individual who doesn't, misuse it or abuse it. And, many ways I try to listen to my body afterwards, but I also listen to my body before. I don't necessarily need to medicate every single second. And, whether it's also the way I medicate, I don't use joints because of the fact that especially if I'm going to be talking about this in a public way, I want to, do it in the most healthy way. So either whether it's oils or, non-combustion vaporizers, I try to do it in the healthiest way possible because, again, this is all for my health and the betterment of me as an athlete and as a patient.
Yeah, I agree with that when it comes to your battle, with USADA or the powers that be that aren't allowing that to sit alongside any other of the pain, the things that can help you through your pain or help you function better as an athlete. I totally get that should be on the okay list,
I think as long as you're using it consciously, right, is like what you're trying to say. Because like Mercedes, like if you're, for the example of with me, how I've taken 7 or 8 weeks off because I'm going through a tough transition and I want to make sure that I'm letting myself go through it and feel all the pain. That way, later down the line, I don't realize it wasn't dealt with, right? So is that kind of what you're asking? Like if you're...
I guess I'm bringing up the point that I guess I'm asking, is there a place where this can become some sort of slippery slope, or can it, anything can be abused, I feel like.
For sure.
So just to notate, as we're talking to, people out there in the world that are listening to this coming from all different walks of life, I think it's good to bring up both sides of the conversation. Like, this obviously,
100%.
as you found, is really important to your life and your career. But similarly, on the other end of that spectrum, it can go to a place that doesn't allow you to know what your body needs and what your brain, your mind needs, and what you need to do to maintain yourself.
Well, again, going back to it, that's why I encourage everyone to talk to a doctor when you're using medical cannabis, right? Like, again, I'm not a professional, but I've definitely talked to one. And my doctor, my medical doctor, is someone that I've known my whole life. He's known me since I was a child to now a man-child.
Right.
So basically, it's a conversation that I'm constantly having. And we, again, even though we decided that cannabis was the best option, we're still being forced to go the long way with it. And we've tried every other option. And, I don't think being told to take opioids really is a better option. But yet, again, the irony with, like, for instance, USADA, they have this whole campaign about, talking about, ending opioid addiction, et cetera, but yet they're recommending me to do opioids. So they're like, there's almost like the left hand isn't right talking to the right. And, one does have to look at, I think it's like in the States alone, I think it was like 60,000 people died last year of opioid addiction. Again, no one's died of cannabis because we have those cannabinoid receptors. Right. In order to actually, quote unquote, overdose on cannabis, you have to smoke twice your body weight, which is humanly impossible. And even then, you'll, again, depending on the way you ingest it, you'll probably die of secondhand smoke or like smoking inhalation rather than, I'm 215 pounds. I'd literally have to smoke 430 pounds in order to, this to be a real negative on my body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like supplementation of any form,
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that can, if it can help you, like if it works with your body and your lifestyle, whatever, then I don't see why anyone should say we can't be using anything really.
It bothers me that alcohol is so normalized.
Yeah.
And
really
this is, you know what I mean? Like, alcohol's so bad for you, and there's so many alcohol related deaths. Like, it is a level 1 carcinogen. It causes drunk drivings. It causes like families to be ripped apart. Like, why is weed considered this level 1 drug?
I can give you a little historical component to it, why it had the whole reefer madness and just basically the stigma that goes along with it. It's been mentioned before, but a gentleman of the name of William Randall Hearst, he owned all the cotton mills back in the day, and he also owned all the newspapers. And when hemp was coming up, he didn't want to lose his grip in regards to the industry. So he owned the newspapers, and marijuana is actually a derogatory term. It comes from the idea of a poor man's tobacco, marijuana, right? It's basically a derogatory term. And the people that were using it at the time were black and brown people. So he tied it to them and basically wrote in his newspapers that it was giving black and brown people superhuman strength and they're attacking people. So that, obviously, with the racist times in the 1930s, made people freak out. So they started legislating it. And, Canada followed suit because we like to copy America in every way, shape, or form. So, and then so did the rest of the world. And, a lot of those laws come from a racist, backbone in regards to the historical and also legislative aspect of it. And, it's very unfortunate because we're decades behind really understanding this plant. We could have had, peer review studies. We could have had, years of clinical trials that we're just starting. And even though we're just starting this now, we've already seen, whether it's anecdotal or whether it's actually the beginning of actual, medical proof of, CBD and also THC helping with, epilepsy and Parkinson's and, really synthesizing the actual mechanics of CBD and THC and helping people with it. And, obviously there's an option for children that, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I'm helping with autism and helping also with children with epilepsy because they, again, talking to a doctor, they wouldn't suggest anyone to use THC until their brain is developed, which is about 2021. And that's roughly where, for instance, my province, which is like the comparable to a state, my state, my province is called Ontario. You're not allowed smoking until about 19. Same thing with cannabis. So again, the brain develops around 20, 21, 24, somewhere around there. And again, I would really suggest anyone and everyone to talk to a doctor first or a healthcare professional. And part of going back to where this is somewhat of a Canadian thing, healthcare is a fundamental Canadian right. So it's actually my right to medicate with cannabis. And unfortunately, this whole process, it's worth fighting, but it actually infringes on my fundamental Canadian right to medicate as so I choose and prescribed by a medical doctor. And that's part of the bigger issue. It's a Canadian right that I'm trying to fight not only for myself, but all other athletes.
Yeah. Well, I know that fighters seem to be calling you out left and right.
Yes.
And it's pretty fucking entertaining, but who do you want to fight next?
I think 5 in total have called me out. So I feel awesome. You like me. You really, really like me. No, but point being, I think Derek Brunson makes total sense. He's 8th best in the world. He's called me out. I think he's a tough task. He's going to try and knock my block off, but everyone is. And, another little fun fact, 3 people have broken their hand off this lovely noggin, my last opponent being one of them. And it's so ironic because everyone that says they're going to knock me out, or even like one opponent, Cesar Ferreira, said he was going to knock my face in. Ironically, my face knocked their hand off. So
that is crazy.
It's a little bit irony. But also another interesting thing, Derek, would be my 11th fight in the UFC and my 8th or 9th southpaw. So I love fighting southpaws. And I think it really gives me a competitive advantage in the fact that I'm basically building on a blueprint of the same fighter, but obviously someone who'd be the best fighter that I'd compete against at that point. The rest of them, they're tough competitors, but it doesn't really make sense. And, I want to fight ranked individuals and I want to keep climbing. And Derek Brunson, he's a tough competitor. He's 8th in the world, and I'd love to take his spot.
Can you explain what southpaw means for some of our listeners that aren't familiar with them?
So it means that, obviously we have 2 hands. Orthodox means you normally have your left foot and your left hand in front to gauge when you punch. This is my go-go gadget arm. And what you're doing is setting up the right, which is your power hand, to finish the job. The left sets it up, the right finishes it. Now, southpaw, the opposite. The right sets it up and the left finishes it. And part of that is, and excuse me, sorry to be unprofessional, but I want to plug in right here so we don't die on the way. And we have connected. Point being, southpaw, they have the right foot forward, and usually that means they're left-handed, right? It makes sense because your power's here, you want to hit them and set that up, where the power's back here and you want to load it up. Some people aren't, like Sam Alvey, he was a southpaw, but his power hand was in his right. And the way he would do that was with a hook, because he would almost bait you in, and he was so long, he just wants to knock your block off with the lead. So everyone's different, and Derek, he has a wrestling base, and he's kind of developed into a striker, but at the same time, he kind of fights a little sloppy, and he's trying to knock your block off, and by any means possible, and it gives up a lot of openings. But at the same time, he's no slouch, and he's competed against some of the best. And, hopefully if all goes well, he'll compete against me, and I'll look to have my hand raised once again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've got a few questions from the Majic mob for you. They always come through strong on our MMA episodes. SpamSam_15 asks, what do you say to people who claim cannabis is a gateway drug? It's been a huge argument for people who want to keep it banned, especially on the right side of the political spectrum.
True. Well, that is obviously a talking point, but that has to do with more statistically speaking, that has to do with addiction in general. So again, about 10%, unfortunately, of the population would be addicted to anything, whether it would be cannabis, whether it be, alcohol or Mr. Clean. It really doesn't matter. It's an addiction that someone's trying to almost alter themselves. And again, that goes into the aspect of, why we need prohibition to end and the opportunity to people to talk to doctors. Going back to what Jade said, and as long as you're not using it, or yourself as well, in the aspect of as long as you're not using it to mask something or suppress something, then I wouldn't look at it in that way of a gateway drug, because we're legally allowed to drink alcohol till your liver dies out, right. But yet
literally,
and then how many poor choices have been made with alcohol? Mm-hmm. I gather a lot more poor choices have been made with alcohol than cannabis. And, I look at the idea of the gateway drug kind of a little bit in the aspect of why or how the system has been set up, and the fact that there's a black market. So again, an example would be something like Amsterdam. If either of you have been there, they have everything under the sun. You can literally buy anything under the sun, and they have no higher form of addiction. It's once you put taboos on something, once you make it harder to reach, that you're getting it from sketchier and sketchier people. You could, again, not my forte, but they literally had cocaine and nasal spray in Amsterdam for sale. And again, statistically speaking, Amsterdam does not have any higher form of an addiction rate, but it's all there. Mm-hmm. It's not looked at it the same in that aspect. Also, for instance, another statistic would be, or another example would be Spain. They haven't legalized it, but they decriminalized all drugs. Every single drug, every single narcotic. They no longer look at it as a criminal problem. They look at it as a health problem, and that's why it's needed to be done. If someone needs to escape, whether it's cannabis, whether it's heroin, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's this, that, the other, it's because they're trying to escape something, and they're looking to something to alter them. And, there's bigger issues in the background. And, I don't think labeling cannabis as that is fair. But yet it's obviously a talking point, and obviously something that's been said because it's looked at this spooky thing, marijuana. It sounds spooky. And that was, as mentioned before, that was part of the plan in that aspect of using, a quote unquote foreign sounding word when talking about it. And that's why I use the word cannabis, because it doesn't have that stigma, and it doesn't have that, obviously, that baggage historically, and including, obviously, the aspect of gateway drug.
Yeah, and I think, I know we're talking a lot about escapism here in regards to marijuana, but the thing is that I think it's important we allow ourselves to have certain escapes, but keep ourselves, we have to still find ways to stay on track with our lives if we want to ever meet our goals. And even that goes for alcohol as well. Like, people should be able to have a drink if they want to, and they should be able to have 10 drinks if they really want to damage their liver. Like, who's to say what other people should do with their bodies? And at the same time, like, people are overeating all over the world too. We could call sugar
100%.
just as bad of a problem as alcohol or anything else. That's probably much more deadly, as a matter of fact. So I don't want to say that no one should be using anything to escape. That was never my point when I brought that up earlier, and I don't think that's even what Spam Sam is asking in this question, as much as maybe just putting a light on why people are still looking at marijuana as a problem instead of a solution. And yeah, I think you've shed a lot of light on that for us today, Elias, so thank you.
No, my pleasure. Well, one of the things I was again going to kind of touch on is the importance of transitioning from looking at it criminally to looking at it health and safety. And again, I voice everyone to talk to their medical provider. Every country is obviously different in the way they kind of look at it. And, access is kind of an issue depending on where you go, because even in Canada, some of the doctors don't look at cannabis that way because they've been taught in a certain way. And they've looked at a book, they looked at their med testing in a certain way, and cannabis is never on it. So, it's an outdated mindset that I'm hopefully looking to use my platform to, in some way, shape, or form, shine some light.
It'd be really nice if we focus a lot more time on figuring out how to keep ourselves motivated towards our goals and moving towards them and moving forward, instead of, these things that we're pretending are blocking our paths towards that, when really it's not. It's our mindsets in the beginning. So I think marijuana might be one of the things that can help you open up that part of your mind to unblock some of those places too. So I think
a lot of people get really creative on it. I was trying to look up this link because I was just seeing the other day there was a link that said the 5 most addictive things in America right now, and in the top 5, alcohol, sugar, some pain pill, heroin, and cocaine. Where those were the 5.
I thought you were going to say video games and Instagram on there somewhere.
Those are probably in the top 10, right? What's crazy though is, like, not all of these are illegal. Like, sugar is pretty much encouraged in our food here. Alcohol is pretty much encouraged in our culture, and so it's just it's still like this. Just almost just gets me my feathers ruffled.
I know. Even the casein in cheese is extremely addictive. I mean,
cheese. It's actually been looked at as cheese is like as addicting as heroin in some capacity. Well, the reason why alcohol has been socialized is because it's actually huge in our historically in our actual fiber. The first people that basically broke off into tribes. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of articles that I've read or whatever, that they would actually almost use fermented bread. So when we were starting to start off in agriculture, that was a way for, instead of being hunters and gatherers, we turned more into just gatherers because of the fact that we could actually start making bread. And that was a real quick and easy way to get carbohydrates. And that was the idea of we need to be a little bit fatter back then. And obviously there's a big issue of it now because we don't have those issues anymore. But we wanted to be a little fatter because we never knew when our next meal is. Now with a superstore next door where you can get chicken, cheese, fruit, this and that need to, burn calories and not know when your next meal was an outdated time. And alcohol as well, further into the medieval times, they put a little bit of alcohol in their water because they didn't actually have filtration. So that was a way to kill all the bacteria. So they would all have essentially beer, but like low levels, or beer and vodka, like equivalent of beer and vodka in regards to their fermentation, low levels of a percentage of alcohol just to clean the water. So that's why it's so socially accepted and such a social thing, because we used to all go to the watering hole and get wasted, hydrate.
You're such a bevy of information, Elias.
Yeah, big useless knowledge.
A big Snapple cap is what you are. Okay, so P.W. Curran.
No, he's Adam Ruins Everything.
Adam Ruins Everything is a good
That's
one.
Who you are.
That's is it Netflix, right? It's a Netflix show where anyone doesn't know what the hell we're talking about here.
I'm going to have to Google it now.
It's really good. P.W. Curran asks, how has cannabis laws helped Canada already?
Helped us put us in the forefront, obviously at a booming, market. It's estimated in Canada it will be about a $25 billion market in the next coming year. It's also helped us in having an adult conversation. Our country actually had it in our like the party that is in charge right now, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, he ran on that. And that got people excited to vote for it. And it was, there were those, issues in regards to the campaign and the way it kind of was kind of positioned by the opposition, someone think of the children. But instead, Canada, statistically speaking, the biggest teen cannabis users in the world. Normally it's about 10% in their youth use cannabis, or 10 to 20%. And Canada is much higher. We're at like 30%. So we're already using it. And, having that taboo and also having that black market is making it much easier for children to find it. It was easier to get cannabis as a child than it was alcohol. We have this whole, part of the negative things in society is actually what pays for our healthcare. So booze and cigarettes pay for our healthcare, right? Wow. So we have, and especially in Ontario where I'm from, we have these like the LCBO and the beer store, and those are government run. So they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and it goes into our healthcare, and it goes into other types of forms of, social programs. And because of it being in that, it was much harder. The fines to buy anyone out, like a underage kid, alcohol, they'll get you in trouble. Mm-hmm. Where, I just had to go to high school, and there was they called it the Big Pebble. There's this big giant rock where all the drug dealers work, where kind of hung out, where you could get it. It was just easier in high school because you're getting it from your peers. Most people get it from their peers now. And what Canada's done now, again, the black market's still very prevalent, and it'll be a couple of years because, there's growing pains moving from a black market to a green market. But moreover, the companies that have been, created, and the level of investment and opportunity, and we're actually spreading that along the world, because not only is there, for instance, the genetics that you can buy from Canadian companies, but you can actually buy the lawyers as consultants to navigate the untangling of all the international regulations. So, for instance, one of the reasons why it took so long for Canada to legalize cannabis was because we all agreed in the UN that cannabis is a narcotic. So Canada's, kind of doing something illegal as agreed to by the UN. So we had to untangle all of those treaties and, basically laws and regulations that we've all agreed upon in nations. Moreover, the border with Canada and the US, that was an issue as well, and the regulatory stuff. So Canada's at the forefront and in this very green economy, and in the next little bit, it's right now estimated at about I think $5 to $9 billion industry as of right now, but it's looking to grow and estimated in the next year or two at $25 billion. And a lot of that is going to actually go right back originally, because again, they didn't realize, or the government downplayed, because a lot of the beginning of this, they had to almost not only people voted for this, but there was a lot of people that, I would argue a little ignorant or just didn't know the facts. Mm. And they were, again, think about the children. What they said was, all this is going to go into preventative. But you don't need $25 billion in preventative, understanding and education. Mm-hmm. You definitely need that, as we talked about, whether it's doctors or obviously students, and telling them that, almost to wait for it, but educating them as well. But this can go back into our roads. This will go back into our healthcare. This will go back into different things. And it's a huge opportunity for Canada to be at the forefront.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have a Pick Your Poison from Gina on Instagram. Would you rather be feared by all or loved by all?
I definitely would say loved in some capacity, because I'm a lover, but everyone has a price. Even though I am a professional fighter, I don't know. I'm not that Machiavellian.
How about you, Jade?
Loved, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I don't whoever says feared, you kind of have to be, you're already afraid of them. So,
who would say feared is like some of our, like Flamenco, some of our hardcore fighters.
I wonder though, at heart, if that's really what, I feel like everyone just wants to be loved at the end of the day, but some use fear to get there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Some days of my menstrual cycle, I'd rather be feared. Just
or not rather, it just kind of happens.
yeah, no, I'd rather like I physically embody some other demon child of whatever's living inside me that comes out on those days. So watch out. So we have a few short questions we like to ask everyone who comes on the show. First off, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
I think, I think I'm very lucky in the capacity that, I love what I do and I've been able to do it in the fullest. Obviously, I think there, in some ways there were a little bit missed opportunities, but, not sweating the little things. I don't really, and one could thank cannabis for that. But what I would tell my 25-year-old self.
How old are you now, if you don't mind?
30.
30. Okay, so it's not too terribly long.
Yeah. What I would tell my 19-year-old self, I guess, even
deeper.
Again, deeper in that, I just keep on keeping on. I started martial arts around that time.
Okay.
So in many ways, I was a little bit rambunctious. I was a little bit, lack of a path, if you say. And I would even argue that not cannabis, force of habit, martial arts, kind of almost like a future gift to myself to, find not only a path for myself, but also some focus. So I would even go back even younger. Like I'd say my 15-year-old self, I would tell myself to get into martial arts sooner.
Yeah.
Just because I think I would be more of more on that path. And, obviously in athlete stance, I'd have more information as an athlete and more of those 10,000 hours.
Yeah, I never was in sports when I was in school. I was always in art classes, and I would take like extracurricular art classes even. It was really, I loved it, but I kind of feel like I missed out in some ways as far as like, first of all, pushing my physical body to where it can go and learning, my strengths and whatnot there, but also just in the camaraderie that comes with it, knowing the structure that comes with it, because you're kind of forced into structure, where I was like always in that creative space, which is probably why now I live mostly in my logical brain on the other end of it, just trying to control it all. But yeah, I think that's a good tip to give your younger self, is like to find something that encompasses structure with endorphin release, with like something that you can bro down. I mean, there's so many good things about MMA.
That's the most logical answer we've gotten, by the way.
Really
I have my moments, and then I'm useless for weeks. So it's fine.
If you could have the whole world read one book, which would it be?
Shoot.
Book.
I'm trying to think of my little monkey brain. What book? I don't know. There's many different aspects. One book.
What was the first book you ever read that made you go like, fuck, there's a lot out there I don't know?
Now I'm having a brain fart on that. Because, like, again, not only do I have, like, random bits of information that I constantly consume on the internet and whatnot, and articles and books. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
You throw out some stuff. You're like, I don't need to ever know that. No one's going to ask me that weird question on a podcast, what book to tell everyone to read. I throw that. I'm going to take this Snapple fact and have it on the ready, though.
Exactly. Like if you wanted to know what Mickey Mouse's original name was, Mortimer. I got
Exactly.
Shoot. I'm trying to think of a book. Well, now, I guess any athlete, the kind of books that I would look at, The Fighter's Brain and The Fighter's Heart are two really good books. It's by the same author. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's Sam something. Okay. They're both about, they don't talk about just fighters. They talk about different martial artists and different athletes. They talk about, they talk to marathon runners and ultra marathon runners. And I talk about, some of the great wrestlers of all time. I definitely say The Heart in a Fighter's Mind is a book in an athlete, but more specifically martial artists, I would say.
Yeah, sure. If you could whisper one phrase to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
One phrase. Damn, I have so many little stupid catchphrases. I don't know.
I know.
The one I think I would go with, it's like telling me to pick. I don't have any children, but it's like telling me to pick your favorite child. I have so many stupid little catchphrases. Shit, shoot. My brain, I can't hone it down. I'm trying to think.
You're not making a good case for marijuana right now.
No, my defense, I have not medicated lately. So there you go. But I think the one more personally, I would say, is the one that I've already shared with you. I'm a lover, but everyone's got a price. I kind of more...
That's what you would whisper in everyone's ear?
Well, not everyone's... I don't know. Everyone's ear? Why do I have to whisper? Why do I got to be...
Because this is like...
Everyone in the world it the whole time when you hear from Elias. I love it.
Okay. How about
Dang it. That's a good one.
Was it?
Only you can
only prevent forest fires? That's from Smokey the Bear.
It's super true. It's super true.
I didn't hear it. I was wiping my tears. What was it?
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Yes.
No, I don't know in regard. No catchphrase. I think the most thing I would say to other people kind of be like, do you, because no one else matters.
That's cool.
You know, you live by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling Mercedes, like, I feel like you have this personality of like, I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. Fuck that. I'm going to have a good time. That's like the personality or the energy I feel like you carry.
Well, thank you. No, I definitely think, I definitely think if I'm going to hone it down to one, it would be definitely do you to hell with everyone else. And again, we're all different shaded monkeys that are essentially trying to find our path. And, we concern ourselves too much about what other people think. And that's ingrained in what makes us different to actual monkeys or actual, primates, in the sense that they don't have, gossip. That's what separates us. The ability to say not only, oh, there's a tiger there. That tiger is such a cunt. You know what I mean? Like that's that gas that's that what's it called? Gossip that kind of separates us from other animals. So I think, ego, for sure. And we're all just different. We're all part of a tribe. Now obviously with the internet and the ability to connect with even more people, and you don't have to people on the same path. You don't have to be physically in the same room or country to kind of connect with them. So we're all trying to fake it till we make it. And so I have other ones. We got other ones. We got other traits we kind of throw out there.
Fake it till you make it. That's the one.
But that goes into the aspect
totally.
of do you, and ignore the rest, because again, everyone at some point was an amateur before they were a professional.
Yeah, and I like that when you talk about monkeys. I mean, I think a big thing that differentiates us between the apes we came from are the fact that we plan for the future. We plan for the distant future. And in order to do that, we need to focus less on the judgment of others, which brings us, scatters us into all kinds of other directions that are not serving us, and focus on what we need to do to be the change. Yeah.
Well, one of the things, now that we talked about what separates us from animals, there's actually a book. If we're talking about a book, it's called Sapiens, and it's by
I'm reading it right now.
Noah Sapiens, and basically right here, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And he talks about the difference and the addition of gossip and our ability to kind of, create this whole other aspect in regards to language, and have the community that goes around it. Because again, the apes that left the tree, they were weaker because we were really good at swinging in trees, and it was really hard for predators to get us. And a lot of the weaker ones were kind of kicked out of the, it's hypothesized that a lot of the weak ones were kicked out of the tree, and they had to group together and kind of find this, this tribe, and kind of help and work with each other. So Sapiens kind of talks about a whole different wide range of things. So in the athletic aspect, Fighter's Mind, Fighter's Heart, Sapiens is another good book. And I think he just came out with a new one as well, that kind of talks about, furthering on to it. But it's a really great book.
Yeah, I'm reading that right now. That was also, the reason I'm reading it is because Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. recommended it on our show. So
nice.
We'll see how it goes. I like that.
Yeah. So Elias, before we let you go, where can people find you on the internet?
Right here for the moment being. But beyond that, it is at Elias Theodorou. There's a lot of vowels in that, so I guess I can spell that. It's at Elias Theodorou. And
wow, it's almost
Instagram.
all vowels.
Yeah.
I'm easy on Jeopardy. I don't know. There's vowels.
There's vowels.
There's many.
Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. I really appreciate that you are obviously a seeker, and you're constantly digging up new information and trying to enlighten yourself. I think that's pretty cool. And the fact that you're doing so much work to be the change that you want to see, you're also embodying that yourself, is an amazing thing. And I'm glad you're just being a light in this world. So thank you for all that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, your kind words. And thank you both for having me. It was a great conversation, and happy to do it again.
Yeah.
I'll see you at Invicta in a couple weeks.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now if you hit stop.
Yeah. It's always an awkward, okay, we're done. Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through the process to get that onto WeTransfer, just to make sure we get that going. So
WeTransfer right now.
Perfect. And you saved it as a wave. So when you're in Audacity, you just save the file
Export?
as a wave. Yeah. file export wave, W-A-V.
Yeah.
And then you can name it something so you can find it and put it wherever you're going to put it. It'll take just like a 30 seconds or something to load that to your computer so you can access it on WeTransfer.
What are you doing in Vegas?
So I'm putting it still there.
And then go into WeTransfer.
Oh, I won't ask you now.
Yeah, like
So
wait a second.
It's a wave.
Yeah.
Signed 6-bit. Okay, cool. Just Magic. Just making sure. 2 seconds. Save desktop. Do I put my artist name? Elias?
Yeah, you can. Right now, yeah, you can put whatever you want on there, really. It's coming from you, so he'll figure it out. Just so you can find it when you go search through WeTransfer.
No problem. So, okay. Boom. It's not taking that long. It'll take 17 seconds.
Yeah. And then when you go on WeTransfer, it's going to take forever, so you'll just leave your computer open and don't close it until it's all the way sent. It's going to take like 30 minutes usually. Actually, we didn't record too long, so probably like 15 minutes.
Sweet. So whose email? Adam's email?
Yeah, so on WeTransfer, you're going to send it to adam@redfoxaudio.com.
Let me just pull it. I'll just pull his thing up on my Gmail and just cut and paste that.
What is that weasel, Jade? It's from a band or something?
Screeching Weasel is my favorite band as a teenager. I got it at their concert. I still have the shirt. What are you doing in Vegas?
I'm at the Performance Institute. So I'm doing doing stuff with all their trainers and coaches, and my training partner, he's here with me. He's getting ready for his fight. So been able to just train, and then I run off to LA on Friday, and then I will be at the Bellator event.
Oh, you will?
Well.
Yeah.
She'll be holding up the ring cards.
Yeah, very good. I'll look out
So
for you.
I'm excited for that because I have yet to see Fedor fight in person.
Yeah.
So I'm fucking pumped. And, Brian Bader's no slouch himself.
No,
And
be
he fights.
interesting for sure. It's a good night.
1 second. Here we go.
Adam's going to be there too, Jade. That's what Adam was talking about today. Our producer will be there as well.
Nice. So I'll meet him in the flesh.
Perhaps. Find everybody. It's always like you always have these big plans to find everyone, you talk to everyone, but no.
That's love. Yeah, 100%. 1 second. Sorry, 1 second. Come on. My internet's starting to slow down now. Luckily.
So are you on WeTransfer, or did you pull it over there? Once you get it into WeTransfer, you send it to Adam, obviously, and then, like I said, just leave your computer open until it goes all the way through, or it'll stop.
It's all in the instructions, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
That Adam sent.
That I saw.
All right. Then let us know if you need anything else on our end. We're going to finish the rest of the show, so you'll have to hang up with us on Skype. But yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
See you this weekend.
See you soon.
Oh, yeah.
Take care.
All right, you too. You'll have to hang up on us. Bye. You're just eating ice cream. You're just eating ice cream during an episode. Billy, you're the one who's going to be watching this video. I apologize.
Enlighten, sponsor us.
Yeah, Enlighten.
No, I want an ice cream sponsor.
That's why you're eating it. That's why you're eating it. No other reason.
That guy AJ is fighting this weekend.
Oh, he is? We just signed him recently.
Ooh, that episode was way longer than I expected.
Yeah.
All right.
It's going to be interesting to cut that one down. I'm going to leave that work to you. You're the one who decided you wanted to have him on. So,
well,
I ad-libbed so much to get some spice. And it was that spicy, I'll tell you. But maybe it's just my personality and mood today. I don't know.
People may turn it off, but they'll at least download it.
That is not good. That's not a good sign. If you ever get your episode turned off, that's not a good sign.
No. I think he has a lot of faithful fans. Good. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, let's give another post-guest reaction.
Yeah. Okay, post-guest reaction starting now, Adam.
Yeah, he's a fun guy.
Yeah, for sure. Everything you said about him was definitely spot on. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to know him now.
Not much room here for another fun guy.
That is the worst joke you've ever said. Let it be known on this podcast, and I will take it.
It is the
and
worst
use
joke.
it later. Thank you. I love bad
It is
jokes.
joke.
I love bad jokes. All right, let's move on to magic tricks.
What do you have, Mercedes?
I thought you'd never ask. So what to do if you're too high, which let me tell you something. As I mentioned earlier, I have had terrible experiences with weed in especially being too high or just generally like just not having fun. So I don't smoke weed like I've said before. I'm not against it. Doesn't mean I'll never do it again. But at this point in my life and for the last, 20 years, it has not been something that I partake in much. I think I sprinkled around with it here and there a few, 8 years, 9 years back. I don't know. But anyway. Okay, so firstly, what you do when you're too high is don't hang out in the room that you just smoked in, since there may be, this is obvious, but there may be some residual smoke in the air. And there's actually a psychological relationship you have with the place you smoke, especially if it's a routine.
Really?
Yeah, if it's like a routine place that you smoke in, it triggers your brain that it's time to be high. So there's something there that you don't want to continue to trigger if you are too high. Okay, then eat a good meal is a good pointer. It's similar to how food helps to up your tolerance to alcohol. It has a similar effect when you're too high. You could also take a hot shower or warm bath, which has had some good results on making you feel less high. And something cool is to have some lemonade or some lemon in some whatever fashion you desire. But the lemon juice and pulp and zest all have terpenes in them, which can help to reduce your high. You can go outside to get some fresh air, go for a walk, grind up some black pepper, or even just chew on peppercorns. I guess pepper has these terpenes in them as well, and similar to lemons, it'll help reduce your high. Lastly, do something that increases your adrenaline. Make sure this is a safe option, please. Like maybe playing an intense video game. And the point there is that adrenaline actually does wonders to bring down your high as well. So, like I said, I have not ever tried using any of these because when I was getting high, I didn't have these at my disposal, and the few times that I have been high, unfortunately, no one was there to be like, chew on some pepper grinds. And no, it was just me and my brain being extremely paranoid. Sometimes I sword fought myself in one of these episodes. I'm telling you, I had some serious shit go down. So you ever want to know, ask me about that in person one day. I'll let you know the story, but it's too long to tell here. So yeah, that's my magic trick. What do you got, Jade?
I just remember one time I'm talking to you and you saying that you were like, I think you were accidentally super stoned and someone was like talking your ear off and all you could think about was the cupcake that was directly behind them. And you were just trying to get the cake the entire night.
This is the time that I had an edible. The only time that I ever did that.
Oh, edibles I cannot do.
Yeah. And
one time I had edibles on accident and went to an acting class.
On accident?
It was on accident. They were gummy bears and I accidentally had them. And I mean, I had them not knowing that they were edibles. And then by the time I got to my acting class, they had just started to kick in. And it was a really like a high profile acting class. And it did not work out for me.
No, I did not accidentally. I don't think I've ever accidentally. Oops, I fell into weed. No, I on purpose had some, I guess with edibles you could accidentally do that because they don't really taste like anything. But yes, I purposely did that, but it was a little stronger than I had intended, as always seems to be the case for me. So I had
I've done it multiple times accidentally because I've had so many roommates that put it in the butter, put it in the cookies, put it in the whatever, leave it laying around unlabeled.
Don't do that shit to me, I'll tell you. No, I just remember, I remember the cupcake now that you speak of it. I never got to it. I had to go order pizza or something instead. That took its place, but yeah. So what do you have for your magic trick?
I thought you'd never ask. So if you don't want the psychoactive effects, but you still would like the benefits of cannabinoids, you can do CBD oil. So I became super passionate about CBD oil about 7 years ago when my friend started giving it to his daughter, who was a St. Jude's patient, and she was having around 70 seizures a day. And she, within a month, stopped having them at all. And it was directly related to the CBD oil. Wow. So just some history here. Marijuana has been used to treat pain as far back as 2900 BC. But more recently, scientists have discovered that certain components of marijuana, CBD mainly, are responsible for its benefits. So for example, with pain relief, and I won't go too deep into each benefit, but just with pain relief, the human body contains a specialized system called the endocannabinoid system, ECS, which is involved in regulating a variety of functions, including sleep, appetite, pain, and immune system response. The body produces endocannabinoids, which are neurotransmitters that bind to cannabinoid receptors in your nervous system. Studies have shown that CBD may help with a variety of things by impacting endocannabinoid receptor activity, which also reduces inflammation and interacts with neurotransmitters. One study in rats found that CBD injections reduce pain response to surgical incision, while another rat study found that oral CBD treatment significantly reduced sciatic nerve pain and inflammation. In one study, 24 people with social anxiety disorder received either 600 milligrams of CBD or a placebo before a public speaking test. The group that received the CBD had significantly less anxiety, cognitive impairment, and discomfort in their speech performance compared to the placebo group. CBD oil has even been used to safely treat insomnia and anxiety in children with post-traumatic stress disorder. It also has shown antidepressant-like effects in several animal studies. These qualities are linked to CBD's ability to act on the brain's receptors for serotonin, a neurotransmitter that regulates mood and social behavior. Some test tube and animal studies have even shown that CBD may have anti-cancer properties. One study showed that CBD inhibited the spread of aggressive breast cancer cells in mice. Oh. Another study had concluded that CBD may be an efficient and safe way to treat acne, thanks in part to its remarkable anti-inflammatory qualities, like Elias was saying. I know this is a lot of studies I'm listing off, but I did a lot of research all day on this. One recent study treated 10 healthy men with one dose of 600 milligrams of CBD oil and found it reduced resting blood pressure compared to a placebo. And the same study also gave the men stress tests that normally increase blood pressure. Interestingly, the single dose of CBD led the men to experience a smaller blood pressure increase than normal in response to these tests. Also, CBD has antipsychotic effects. Studies suggest that CBD may help people with schizophrenia, and other mental disorders by reducing psychotic symptoms. It also helps with substance abuse treatment. CBD has been shown to modify circuits in the brain related to drug addiction. In rats, CBD has been shown to reduce morphine dependence and heroin-seeking behavior. It also has anti-tumor effects. In test tube and animal studies, CBD has demonstrated anti-tumor effects. In animals, it has been shown to prevent the spread of breast, prostate, brain, colon, and lung cancer, which is pretty crazy. Diabetes prevention. In diabetic mice, treatment with CBD reduced the incidence of diabetes by 56% and significantly reduced inflammation. So, with all that said, it's pretty magical what all CBD can do for you. It's important to note, though, that you don't take it once and feel the effects right away. At least not for me. Its effects are felt when you take it daily, like you do your supplements. So my favorite time is just right before bed. I put some under my tongue, just like you would do your melatonin. My favorite brand is Pure Spectrum because of how much variety of products they have, from creams to oils to pens to powders. And you can, like, they have an isolate that you can use, in your baked goods. You can get a cream that you can use on your sore muscles, which I love when I'm having menstrual cramps. That helps me a lot. You can also, so it's Pure Spectrum, and you can also use my name Jade as a code to get a nice little discount. This is not a paid ad spot. I just really want you guys to try this stuff out because of how much I believe in it. So, yeah, that's it.
Cool.
I know that was really long, but Adam can I didn't want to I wanted to be able to listen back to it and just pull out what was, dragging.
Yeah. So get on that CBD train, apparently.
All right, Magic Moppers. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking this journey with us. If this episode held some magic for you, please share it with your friends and family. This would mean so much to us. And don't forget to join us on our Instagram page at The Magic Hour and let us know what your favorite episodes have been so far.
Until then, be a light.
Be a light.